Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We have got some more big Perseus news to go over today. We have another sneak peek that came out for the RSI Perseus and a little bit of a hint at some stuff that we talked about for last week's video on the sneak peek of the bridge area that looked like it maybe had changed. We got a little bit of an indication as to something that hasn't become a thing, or we'll talk about it a little bit further in a minute, but it helps narrow down the bit of confusion there was with the bridge layout there. So we're going to talk about that. We also, in just a second here, will be drawing our giveaway winner for that Gray's Market Shiv game package. So we'll go ahead and do that. There'll be a few other maybe little news things that we touch on as well. So let's go ahead and get into all of that. All right, so for our giveaway winner, again, this was a giveaway for the Gray's Market Shiv with a game package included and lifetime insurance, and it included CitizenCon digital goodies package as well. I thank you all so much for participating in this. The winner for this from the random comment picker is Christian Mahiu, I want to say, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, your comment from a few days ago. Now I'm split in half. I have a CCU chain to the Polaris that includes a CCU to the Perseus. I don't know anymore. Well, I'll just say I'd wait for the Perseus to come out, play around with it a little bit, and then it might give a little bit better idea on what you want to go with. I think the Perseus and the Polaris will both be pretty fun to play around with, though. But you are the winner for the giveaway. So if you can get in contact with me via Discord, you can just add me as a friend on there. It's Jojo TV, same as my YouTube name is. Send me a friend request and a DM, and then we can verify that you are who you are and get that sent over to you. So make sure to reach out to me pretty soon, and I thank you all so much for participating, and big thanks to CIG for making that giveaway possible by sending over those prizes for you all. Alrighty, so now let's get into talking about the Perseus some more. First, let's go over the little bit of additional info that we have now regarding last week's sneak peek. So if you're not familiar, last week there was the first real sneak peek we've gotten for the RSI Perseus that showed the bridge. Now, it was a little bit confusing because it kind of looked like that the bridge layout had changed a little bit to, instead of having the central pilot seat and two remote turret seats to the sides and a little bit further back. From the perspective of that picture, it looked a little bit like the bridge had potentially been kind of Polarisified, where it had a pilot and a co-pilot seat up front for the left and the right, and then it looked like further back there was another seat that people were speculating was a captain's chair or something like that. Well, in the newsletter from this week that included the new sneak peek for the Perseus, which we'll look at in a moment here, there was a little bit of like a dev interview. There's just some kind of questions they asked him, but one thing they asked, and I'll throw up the screenshot of this section here, they said, are there any teases you can give about what's coming to the verse? And their response was, don't worry, it's not a captain's chair, wink face, which is very interesting. That kind of gets rid of one of the ideas for what we had the bridge layout to be, with that to the co-pilot and pilot seat at the front and the captain's chair further back. And I'd say it makes it a lot more likely that they still have the traditional layout for the Perseus that it had in the concept, but we can talk about that just a little bit more in just a second here. So again, I have the old sneak peek up right now. We'll just do a really quick recap. Just from the perspective of it, it looked kind of like these two chairs here are a lot closer to the camera or to the front, and this chair in the back looks to be a little bit further away, down lower. So some people were thinking that maybe this layout had changed, so you'd have a pilot seat here and a co-pilot here, kind of like you do on the Polaris, and then this seat would be your captain's chair a little bit further back. But from that indication from the newsletter, I don't think that's going to be the case. So I would guess the only other way I can go with this is that I can think of is just the traditional layout that the Perseus had in concept, which would mean that this chair is the pilot's chair. Now, again, it is a little bit weird because the chair in the concept images is supposed to be right up here at the front. That's where you pilot the ship from. But this chair looks like it's quite a ways back there. So unless it's the camera perspective kind of messing with us a little bit, maybe this chair will slide forward a little ways. I don't entirely understand why it would do that. It feels like there'd be a lot of space there, but again, this bar kind of blocks some of the view there, so we'll have to see for sure. But at least from that indication, I think we can rest assured that the layout of the Perseus bridge has remained true to the concept. So you'll have the pilot seat somehow come forward here, and then you have the remote turret operator seats that are a little bit further back, but they are raised up a little bit above the pilot seat. So very much looking forward to seeing how the bridge looks, and of course how the rest of the ship looks, which leads into us going over the new sneak peek where we get a look at a different part of the ship. So let's go take a look at that. Alrighty, so here we have the new sneak peek for the RSI Perseus. The little tagline for this is simply loading ... And as we can see here, what is very, very clearly the torpedo bay of the RSI Perseus. In the concept, the Perseus was said to have 20 size 5 torpedoes. I had speculated as to whether potentially the size had moved up a little bit on those torpedoes, because we've heard there's been quite a lot of evidence to indicate that the ship guns have gotten a little bit bigger. They've gone from size 7 to size 8. There's also been some good evidence that the overall size of the ship has increased some. So I thought, well, you know, it's possible, maybe along with those changes to the size and the gun size, maybe they make the torpedoes a little bit bigger, maybe they make them size 6 torpedoes, but at least from this image, from what I've seen, these look pretty much identical to the current size 5 EM torpedoes. I forget the exact name of it. So it looks right now as though the Perseus has maintained the size 5 torpedoes. I guess it's possible that they could have just scaled up the size 5, the size 6s, and these could be size 6s. You never know. They have done that with, there's other missiles that are like that are smaller sizes. So we'll have to see for sure once we have the ship in our hands. But we can see here a view of the torpedo bay, but there's also quite a bit of other changes here from the concept. So now let's talk about some of those and some of the interesting stuff and some of the very confusing stuff. So we're going to be switching a little bit back and forth between some of the concept images of the internal layout of both the middle deck here, which has the torpedo deck in its entirety in the concept, but also the cargo deck we'll look at a little bit as well, because if we go back to the sneak peek here, it appears that the camera shot here, this is going to be on your kind of main deck of the ship, the torpedo deck. And if you go back further through this walkway here, what should be kind of the catwalk that goes over the cargo bay, unless that's changed, and then you'd get back to your habitation area. So this is the main deck of the ship. Down lower here, we can see back here, this is for weirdly the focal point of the picture. Everything else is kind of blurry, but they have specifically focused on the door here. But this is, as far as I know, a new door that's part of the ship. And you can see there, the signage says cargo hold would be past there. So as far as I can tell, the camera perspective for the sneak peek, we're looking towards the back left of the ship. So this should be leading, of course, into the cargo bay that we can see here in the concept. But as you can see, in the concept, at least, there's on this deck, there's nothing forward of the cargo bay, so it seems like they have filled in some of that dead space and added in a little bit of a lower area for the torpedoes. And then something else that's interesting is I think what's going on here is we have at the front, and this should be, I would imagine, mirrored on the opposite side of this walkway. We have our loader that has the torps in there. And then this, I am a little bit confused on. Well, there's a couple things it could be. Most likely what it is probably, it might be just a dedicated storage space in the ship right next to the torpedo launchers that you can load in extra torpedoes. So then you can just tractor in some new torpedoes across the way here to the torpedo launchers. Or it's possible maybe this rack, maybe you move it down when you put in torpedoes, and maybe there's a deck, a walkway here, but on the lower floor, maybe the rack goes under there and kind of hand wavium, it moves the torpedoes into the launcher area. We'll have to see. There's a couple of different things that could be happening here, but I'm very intrigued to see what it ends up being. But it seems like in some way or form, there's going to be extra capacity where you can snap torpedoes into these slots here, where you wouldn't necessarily have to be keeping them on your cargo grid. So you have to let me know what you think about that down in the comments. Do you think it's a stationary thing and you just put extra torpedoes there and then you just move them over into the rack with your tractor beam, or would this slide down and then maybe under the floor they kind of slide forward into the belt? We'll have to see. But if you have any thoughts on that, make sure to let me know down in the comments. And as for, really quick, the launcher mechanism itself, I'm pretty sure for how it's going to work from what I can see here is it looks like up here we have this little area that seems to be, you know, like a tube, and there's some mechanism here that looks like the torpedoes would slide up into this, and this is the actual tube that they're fired from. I think I don't have the concept images up right now, but the torpedo launchers that the Perseus only has 2 of them actually, and they're a little bit higher up on the sides of the main hull. So that would make sense for positioning wise, at least, if this was the launchers themselves, which again can tie into potentially you send the torpedoes down here, they go under the deck, and maybe they slide forward into this belt potentially. But it looks like, as far as I can tell right now, these torpedoes are going to slide up into those launchers, and then that's where they get fired out the front of the ship. Now, there's a few other interesting little bits and bobs here I wanted to touch on. One is I've seen some people point out already, it doesn't appear from this perspective that when you're on this walkway here that there's any railing or anything. It could just be the perspective of the camera. It's pretty low down to the floor, so it's possible maybe there's a railing that goes along the top here that's just out of the camera view. Although I feel like that would look a little bit weird to not have any like support little beams along the walkway here. So maybe it's just wide open, which would be interesting. I guess you'd have to be careful to not get thrown down there when you're pulling some G's or something. But that's a little bit of an interesting touch. The other thing is, it's going to be a little bit hard to see, but you have to look carefully here. Let me zoom in. This little area here that has these 4, I don't know, grates or something where the light is coming through brighter than other areas. I don't know if this is meant to be like a window that pokes through into the overhead cargo bay, or just some other decorative element, or something else that we don't know what it would be, but an interesting little piece of the ship that I noticed there that has me intrigued to see what it ends up being. Then the last big thing is going to be this door that we can see here. So this is, again, going to be on the bottom deck of the Perseus in this cargo bay. Although the weird thing is that it looks to be off-centered to the left for some reason. Because you can see, I'm pretty sure right here, this is the break in the door, so where it would slide, you know, they slide apart. That's the middle of the door, basically. I do also really appreciate the much better and much clearer signage on the doors. I'm really hoping they bring a similar pass over to the Polaris for some of its rooms. But it just feels a little weird that this door would be, unless there's something weird, again, under the walkway here that we can't see, and this door is a lot wider than it looks. It seems from this perspective that the door is off-centered to the left for some reason. So why that would happen, I don't know entirely. Again, we could be missing something here, but that's one other interesting thing that I noticed. But I am grateful that they did this, because it'll make it a lot easier to move extra torpedoes into this area from your cargo bay. There may also be, like, you never know, there may be some further along the walkway here, if you were to look behind where the camera is and you go down to that lower deck, maybe there's some other component access or other access for other systems for the ship. I don't know, but this is definitely a good indication that there has been some internal changes for the Perseus. And if we look at the concept, you can see it looks quite a bit different now. The deck that we can see in that sneak peek compared to this. There's not this big wide platform anymore, so I think it could point to some potential big changes coming to other parts of the ship, maybe in habitation, maybe in the cargo bay, something else. But I'm very excited for it. But there's a little bit of a breakdown and discussion on the latest sneak peek for the Perseus. Again, we also have the indication that that chair in the bridge is not a captain's seat, so it makes me think that it's probably more likely that you'll have that single pilot seat in the front. So we'll have to see for sure. But 2 sneak peeks in a row for the Perseus makes me think we are going to be seeing this in the PTU very, very soon, probably within the next, I'd say 2 weeks at the most. They're supposed to be starting the PTU testing for 4.4 on, I think they said early as like next week, so Monday potentially. Also, the tech preview got pushed back to Monday as well for engineering, but I'm excited to see what ends up happening there, and whatever we hear about, I'll be covering that for you all so we know kind of what's going on with engineering. But we got some big stuff coming up ahead. So again, make sure to let me know any thoughts you have on what we talked about today down in the comments. For that giveaway winner, make sure to reach out to me on Discord. If I don't hear from you in probably the next 3 or 4 days, then we will draw another winner. So make sure to reach out to me for that. And if you have any thoughts on what you'd like to see at IAE, make sure to let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like as it really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Star Citizen news coming in the very near future. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the verse.